I created G-plans out of nutrition frustration. One day during nutrition studies at Duke University, we came across a revelation. We discovered that everyone has a completely unique metabolic structure and type. Eating a generic diet program will not get you the results you want, and you will continue on a path of yo-yo dieting forever. Ultimately, sustainable food programs are built within your own specific metabolic template.
I eat what Dr. G tells me to eat for my metabolic type. I don't call this program a diet because I eat more than on other programs.
Hello and welcome to today's nutrition masterclass. So glad to see quite a few people checking in today. Some new faces here, new names. I see Wanda. Hello to you. Scott, great to see you back again. Rebecca as well. Glad to see you back. And then Sheila, hello to you. So glad you're here today. Of course, we are going to be discussing a topic. We're going to talk about emotional eating for today's nutrition masterclass. So we're going to get started here in just a minute, but please remember, so if you have any questions that come up throughout the presentation today, you can feel free to add those in the chat box. You can also feel free to send me an email if you have something you'd like to prefer to reach out to me individually about. I'll share my email today also. So we're going to dive right in and get started. Okay. All right. Okay, so for today's topic, we'll be covering exploring emotional eating. All right. So here's our table of contents for today and what we'll be covering. First, we're going to get an intro to what we'll cover in exploring emotional eating. Next up, we're going to discuss a little more why specifically do we eat because of emotions. I'm going to ask you next up a question. See how little feedback from you. Next up, we're going to discuss the differences between emotional hunger and physical hunger. So how can you tell the difference between those? And lastly here, I'm going to go over some tips that can help you to stop emotional eating. And as we always do, last thing of our presentation will be my tip of the week there. Okay. All right, so as I mentioned, feel free to add those questions in the chat box today. I will take those at the end of the call here today. But if you have something you'd like to reach out to me individually about, feel free to do that. My email is here on the screen, and this will also be added in the chat box today for you as well. All right, so getting started here. When you eat in response to emotions, good or bad, this is called emotional eating. Our bodies, we definitely need food to survive. So it can make sense that eating can distract us or temporarily help us to feel a bit better. However, when emotional eating happens more often, and if you don't have other ways to cope with those specific emotions, this can definitely affect your health, and it can certainly derail your weight loss efforts as well. Although it may seem like a way to cope in the moment, eating truly is not going to, of course, address that true issue for that emotion, and a negative cycle can be created. A negative cycle in that, of course, when you resort to that food, when you feel that emotion, a lot of times after that, you might find you don't feel so great about yourself. So that negative cycle kind of begins. It's totally natural to have an emotional relationship with food. Absolutely. So we do experience emotions through food. Food is very important for that aspect, but it's so important to be in tune with our emotions so that you can make a more conscious decision about when what and how you eat, rather than your emotions kind of dictating that instead. So, why specifically do we eat because of emotions? We know that stress, boredom, other emotions can all be triggers for emotional eating. Emotional eating can also become really an automatic behavior. So the more that food is used to cope, the more ingrained that habit becomes. And we've talked a little in the past about habit loops. So a habit loop is initiated by a trigger. And again, after a while, when this really gets ingrained in your routine, it does become almost automatic. So you think less about what you're doing, and it just becomes that automatic habit that kind of happens on its own. Again, this is going to be really key, why it's so important to understand your triggers and to break that habit loop. So it's very important also to know, again, at the end of the day, what your individual triggers are. Studies show that you are also more likely to eat emotionally if you do have a history of following some restrictive diets, or if you go long hours without eating. Because restrictive plans, they may even cut out entire food groups, this can kind of reinforce in your head that some foods are all good and some foods are all bad. So again, we talk about different foods here on nutrition masterclasses, and there's going to be certain foods that you definitely want to emphasize in your diet. Things that are going to be more nutrient dense, have good benefits, and there's going to be other things that you want to reduce. But again, being a little too rigid in that and not allowing some flexibility is not a really good, healthy mindset to have around food. When we do view food from a more restrictive mindset like that, and or follow plans that may be very low in calories or cut out a food group, this can cause us to become disconnected from our true hunger cues and promote more disordered eating. So again, when you're not eating regularly throughout the day consistently, or you're not eating enough, over time, you will maybe start to get a little more disconnected with your feelings of hunger, your hunger cues, and feelings of fullness as well. So eating regularly will help you to be more in tune with that. So let me know a little bit at this time, are you facing any challenges right now with emotional eating? Are you currently coping with any certain emotional eating concerns? Please feel free to share with me in the chat box if you have any questions with that. Or if you have some tips that help you specifically, let me know in the chat box as well. And also if you don't want to add in the chat box, feel free also to send me an email, of course. Okay, so how do we differentiate between emotional hunger and physical hunger? It can definitely be pretty tricky, and it can take some time to really tune into these cues. If you haven't eaten for several hours, or if you generally don't eat enough in a day, you are more likely to experience emotional eating. So the first step is definitely to ensure that you are eating consistently. Physical hunger develops slowly over time. It is tied to the last time that you ate, and it is associated with a feeling of fullness that is a cue to help you stop eating. Now, emotional hunger, it does come on more suddenly. It is triggered by the need for comfort or distraction, and it is not associated with a feeling of fullness. So you'll usually notice, again, if you're triggered by an emotion to eat something, you don't notice those feelings of fullness as easily. Again, it's so important to explore your personal triggers and develop a plan that helps you to break your habit loop of emotional eating. So this can look a little bit different for everyone. All right, so how do you stop emotional eating? Again, can be a little tricky, and you need to definitely learn more about you individually. Again, your triggers, what your habit loop looks like. But these tips here are going to be an excellent place to start to help you out first thing. So first things first, again, you want to make sure you are eating on a routine schedule. Eating regularly, it provides a sense of stability and predictability in your daily life. Regular meal times help to regulate those hunger cues, and that reduces the likelihood of mistaking emotional cravings for genuine physical hunger. Having scheduled meals also can create a structured environment, making it easier to identify and address emotional triggers separately from eating habits. Next is find a healthier alternative. A great way to disrupt a habit loop is to incorporate a different activity in replace of the one that you're looking to eliminate. This could look like going for a walk, listening to music, maybe calling a friend. Sometimes when we're feeling certain emotions, all we need is to kind of focus on another activity. So you might find trying something else helps to get that off of your mind. And lastly here, again, so important to make sure you're sticking to a healthy, balanced diet. If you're feeling tempted to grab a more processed snack like chips or sweets, try to focus on having a healthier snack instead. Snacks with a balance of macronutrients and whole foods that are packed with fiber will help to keep you feeling good and keep you satisfied for longer as well. Now, one thing you can do here too is if you're feeling tempted by maybe a snack that's not as healthy, if you're feeling those kind of emotional cues there, tell yourself you're going to have more of a healthy, balanced snack first, and then allow yourself, say, maybe 10 minutes afterwards. And tell yourself if you feel that you still want it, you will still have that original snack that you wanted to have. So typically what you'll find is after having that more balanced snack and giving yourself a little bit of time, you may notice that you're satisfied and you don't want that other item you were reaching for after you do that. So have a nice healthy snack, keep your diet, of course, very balanced, and then in that moment, have that healthy balanced snack, give yourself maybe about 10 minutes, and you might find you're not tempted by that item anymore. All right, and so we've made it to the last thing of our presentation today, my tip of the week. So this is all focused on today's topic, and I say try out a food and mood journal. So what is that specifically? We know that a food journal can help us to be more aware of how we respond to certain foods, and it can also help us to identify patterns and triggers that lead to emotional eating. By becoming more aware of your emotions and eating habits, you can develop healthier coping strategies and make more mindful food choices to manage emotional eating more effectively. So try this out by jotting down how you feel before a meal or snack, or specifically when you're feeling tempted. Go ahead and open that journal again if you're feeling tempted or before a meal, and write down in a word maybe how you're feeling. You might, again, maybe also give yourself a few moments. So if you're feeling tempted, write down that emotion, give yourself a few minutes before you eat to consider if something else might actually satisfy that particular emotion more than food might. So this is going to help you, again, to be more aware of your triggers, be more aware of that connection between certain emotions and food, and it can kind of help to disrupt that trigger, disrupt that habit loop, and just help you to learn more about yourself as well. So this does bring me to the end of our presentation today. So if you have any other questions, anything for me, please feel free. Go ahead and add those to the chat box at this time. All right. Okay, so see a few questions here. All right. Rebecca said she just realized that bookkeeping, and some computer work does make her want to snack. So yeah, Rebecca, you might explore a little more maybe why specifically in those moments. Why do you feel tempted in those scenarios? Are you feeling maybe a little bored by those specific activities? Maybe you could add something else on, like playing some music. Maybe you could talk to someone at the same time, or even turn on a show, something you're interested in, and that might be enough to kind of get another stimulus going on for you to be able to focus on. I would also encourage you as well, though, of course, a great place to start is with that journal. So anytime you're feeling maybe those triggers, you're feeling tempted, go ahead and jot down how you're feeling in that moment, and that can help you kind of connect those things as well. Scott says, watching TV or boredom also does lead me to snacking mindlessly. So absolutely, boredom definitely is a big one. So again, yeah, try out that food journal. That can help you connect everything, that food and mood journal, but also consider, again, some other things you can incorporate maybe when watching TV. So some other things that can keep you active kind of while you're still watching. Maybe you can kind of go around the house, do a little cleaning, talk to someone, or have a healthy snack. So again, make sure you're having that healthy, balanced snack. And again, you might find when having that first, you're less tempted by the other foods as well. Clara said, will this replay? Absolutely, yes it will. So you can come back to our YouTube page. There's some tabs at the top, and there's one that says live. After this video ends today, this will be recorded for you with all the previous other masterclasses for you to view later. And then Wanda said, when I'm emotional, I do not have an appetite. Absolutely. So again, we all definitely respond to stress and emotions differently, and that can be a totally normal response as well, as to not feel hungry. And that's a really good thing to note also, because in those moments, even if we're not feeling hungry, we know, of course, it's super important for you to still be eating as consistently and balanced as you can. Because, of course, too, when we're under stress and we have, higher stress hormones, cortisol, it's going to be very important to make sure we're still getting that nutrition and fuel that we need. So I would say do the best that you can to still focus on eating about every 3 to 4 hours. Again, opt for some quick and easy things, some things you can grab and go a little easier that'll be healthy choices. And if you are on G plans as well, I'd like to suggest when you swap a recipe out, you can click on the filter button after that, and there'll be a few categories. There's quick and easy, under 15 minutes cooking time, or no cooking required options. So I would say look for some of those that could help you out in those moments that you don't feel so hungry, but you know, of course, it is important to continue eating regularly as best you can. All right. Scott had a question, said, are blueberries bad for weight loss? Absolutely not. Blueberries are awesome for weight loss. So blueberries are packed with antioxidants, and they have a ton of different health benefits for us. They're also a really good fruit that is lower glycemic, so they're less likely to spike our blood sugar levels as well. So overall, a really good choice. Berries are great, and blueberries are an awesome one for sure. All right. Well, this does bring me about to the end of today's presentation. So if you had a question, something else, again, if I didn't get to you today, please feel free to send me an email. And this call, of course, this will be recorded on our YouTube page. So if you want to rewatch this, it'll be here for you later, along with our previous masterclasses as well. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and hope to see you next week. So of course, every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we're here with another live topic. So love to see you here, and hope to see you again next week. Have a great rest of your week.